there was a knock at the door on Sunday morning, and at the door was a hunter, and he had half a boar that they'd shot as a gift to us because it was killed on our land. Welcome back, friends. Welcome back to the homestead and into the kitchen. Today I was hoping to show you how to make some wild boar sausages. However, we bought a decent meat grinder, and when I opened the box to get the sausage nozzle, this is what I saw, which, if you're watching, you know anything about making sausages, this is fairly useless for making sausages because it's not a straight nozzle, and the nozzle actually is quite big. Now that's okay for making big sausages, like sardelers, bangers, frying sausages, but if you want to make chipolatas, it's fairly useless. And it's fairly useless anyway because the nozzle is pitched, it's not straight. So how are you supposed to get sausage skins on there? I do not know. So we will solve that by getting one 3D printed or something like that. We've got friends with 3D printer, or maybe I'll get one, I don't know. So instead of making sausages, what I'm going to do today is make some wild boar koteletes, which you might call burgers, maybe pork burgers. Now, this is our wild boar, and this was killed on our property, on our land, in our forest. There was a knock at the door on Sunday morning, and at the door was a hunter, and he had half a boar that they'd shot as a gift to us because it was killed on our land. We know that there've been wild boar around, we've seen the damage that they've done, and so this was the gift from the hunters, and these were the kind of the trimmings left over, and perfect for sausages, got a nice amount of fat on it. I mean, there wasn't loads of fat on the boar anyway, but so in Latvian it's called Mežacūka, literally means forest pig. So we're going to make some forest pig kotletes, Mežacūka kotletes, and yeah, slightly different recipe to, I've made kotletes before, or Gita's mum did with her traditional family recipe, so I've got a slightly different recipe. I'll do all the spices as if I were making sausages, but then we'll just make koteletes. Patties, I think, is American English, they would call them at the end. So let's go straight into it, and I'll run through the ingredients, and then we'll grind it. We're going to chop it up and put it through the meat grinder, and then we can make our patties. And I'll take you through the process of doing that as a sort of method you need to do it. Right, let's look at the ingredients. Okay, so we've got about 2 kilos of wild boar. It's about 1.9 kilos, I think. We've got an apple. Got some oregano and thyme, like 6 grams there of each. Salt, 20 grams. And then pepper, onion powder and nutmeg. 2 grams of nutmeg and 6 grams of pepper and onion powder. Smoked paprika, again 6 grams, and 3 grams of garlic powder and 1 egg. We'll also need some water later on. Just very quickly, if you're wondering about measuring the herbs and spices, these are the scales I use. They're accurate down to 1/100th of a gram, so it's really helpful for this kind of thing. Okay, so the first of what we need to do is prepare the meat, and I'm just cutting that up into chunks, which I know will easily go through the mincer. Now, I've used here the trimmings from when I was butchering the wild boar, and as well as the trimmings, there was a big piece of the belly. Now, boar belly is not as fat as pork belly, and so you might need to add a bit more fat just to get the ratios right. Certainly the burgers and koteletes will benefit from that extra fat in terms of the taste. Okay, next we put all the herbs and spices in, not the salt though, we'll put that in a bit later. And what I'm going to do now is blend all these together. Basically I'm trying to get all the herbs and spices to go through the mincer, so it's all minced into the mince, ready to go. That's how you would make sausages, and I think it's going to work really well for these burgers and koteletes. So let's run it through the mincer. It does a great job of mincing up this meat. Once you run it all through, as I have here. So next we need to chop up the apple into little bits. put that into the bowl as well. Put in the egg, and we're going to put in our salt at this stage, and then last of all the water. So I'll go over the ingredients again in the description of the video below, so you've got them all for reference. So next, just mix it in with your hand. Obviously, if we were making sausages, this would be a quick operation, and then that would be blended through the mincer again. And then what I'm going to do now is let that meat rest for a few hours, or in our case overnight, and come back to it tomorrow. So here we are the next day, actually the next evening, and my family are banging on the table. They're ready to eat, so I need to get going. So my daughter has asked if we can have burgers rather than koteletes, so I'm going to make some burgers, some quarter pounders, and I'm going to make some koteletes for Gita's mum as well. So she doesn't really do burgers for whatever reason. So I've got this fancy burger maker which I got over in the UK, and we brought it over here with us. I think it's the first time we've used that actually since we got here. It does a great job of forming the burgers, the patties. You just press it in and compress it, and then it pops out. So I'll make 6 of these, and then we've got enough mixture for our kotletes. Very similar process, but all done by hand. Just shape them into, I guess, a kind of burger shape, but they're more oval, and certainly not as thick as those quarter pounders. And the only difference with the kotletes is what I'm going to do is just dip them in some semolina manna, just to coat them on the outside. And then that's your kotletes made, really. So I'll do the rest. I mean, as to how many there are from that mix is really down to you, about how big you make them, I suppose. You can make some big ones and small ones, vary the size, completely up to you. In the meantime, you can put your pan on the oven, or in our case the wood stove, the pleats, and get that heated up with some fat in it. So I'm going to cook 3 at a time. That's what size the pan, how many the pan will take. And just keep an eye on those. Our wood stove can go from quite cold to fiercely hot, so it can, in this case, give a little bit of charring, shall we say, but that really adds to the flavour, I thought. I'll just flip them over. Got some nice colour on that side. Nice and juicy. Looking great, and we can put our koteletes on at the same time. So I'm just using some lard, some pork fat to fry them off in. And then we can put quite a few in the pan at the same time. I just tend to lay them in, flip them all away from me so the fat spits away from me. Lovely and sizzling there in the pan. See, the smell when you're doing this is just incredible. So our burgers and koteletes are getting ready. It'll be time to flip those koteletes over, I think, and brown the other side and cook them fully through. Looking great. I'm nearly done there, I think. So we just need to think about how we're going to serve these up. And I'll give you a couple of serving suggestions. I'm also going to fry off some onions for the burgers. Fry them in the same fat. You could have the onions raw as well. So we're ready to serve our koteletes. Very, we've got some fried potatoes, some of our own potatoes, just halved and fried in some fat on the wood stove. with the skins on, and then I'll just put some relish, some leche relish on the top of the koteletes, and just serve them like that with a pickled gherkin. That's a very Latvian way to serve your food. You could also make some sauce from the fat in the pan as well if you wanted to, from all the juices. And then for the burger, we've got some burger buns, and I'm just going to layer these up with some mayo on the bottom, and then I've got a few other toppings to go on top, depending on what you fancy at the time, really. People made, daughter and Gita made their burgers how they wanted it, really, so I've kind of made mine. We've got the onions on there, and then we've got some slices of pickled gherkin to go on to Oma's famous pickled gherkins, which I've got the video on that, so I'll link to that. Some paprika, and then some hot jalapeno peppers. I like my spicy peppers, chilies, so I'll put some of those on as well. Or just the one, is it? Lettuce leaves, a little bit of salad, and then put the top on. I actually forgot to put the tomato in, and I'll come back later and do that, but I did want some tomato in there as well. Just put a flag in there, and again serve it with some of these potatoes with the skin on the side, and again with the pickled gherkin. Makes a nice meal. Not especially Latvian, but we're a multicultural family in this household. So there goes a tomato, and then we're all done. Just left to say bon appetit, or lab appetit, as we say in Latvia. Enjoy your meal. I hope you find the video of some use and helpful, and I look forward to seeing you on another one soon.